Hi everyone, very good morning.
Morning, everyone.
I think we should start. Very good morning from India. I'm Vidya. I work at Whizlabs as a marketing manager, and we have Mallikarjun. He works at Whizlabs. Sneha, she's also part of Whizlabs. She's a communication manager over there. And Abhishek, like everybody knows, there is no webinar without Abhishek. He's the champ of Whizlabs, but due to some technicality, he and Mallikarjun are not unable to turn on the camera today. However, we have Dhaval. Today is one of the exciting day for Whizlabs because we have got Dhaval as our facilitator. So many of you already know him. He is 12 times AWS certified, and he is the founder of AppCam, and he is also an AWS hero. So we are pretty excited for this webinar. So without further ado, welcome Dhaval. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vidya. Morning, everyone. I hope you all are good, safe. Can you, yes, let me start my screen share. Okay, I hope you can see. So, thank you. Good morning again. Good morning to everyone. Thank you, Vidya. Thank you, Whizlab, for the opportunity. I am pretty excited as well. Like you said, I hold a few things, so I'm just going to quickly go through that. Uh, Certifications. Many of the people know me because of the amount of certification that I have achieved. I'm also AWS Serverless Hero. I am also a certification subject matter expert, helping AWS create some questions around the certifications. I run AWS user group in my city, Surat, and I also own and run a small development and consulting firm based in India. Now, uh, just a quick thing. I have a long relationship with Whizlabs. As you can see, I have number of certification, and out of I currently hold all 12 AWS certification. But out of the 12, I think I have used Whizlab practice test for almost 8 or 9. That is, I'm talking about 2018, 2019. So very much I recommend it to almost everyone who asks me that what should I do to actually do the final preparation before they sit for their certification, whether it's AWS, whether it's Google Cloud or Azure as well. I haven't tried Azure, but this is from my personal experience. If you have any questions, any doubt, please go through the practice test of Whizlab. I think you'll be fine. I have, like I said, the only thing I didn't actually use it for a couple of certification because it was quite new at that time. I'm talking about 2019, early 19, mid 19, and I think they have it now, and I have used it for almost 8 or 9 of my certifications. So it's pretty solid. So yes, let's get started. If you have already done any of the certification, let's say you are practitioner, you have done practitioner, then go for associate. If you have done one associate, go for another associate. Okay, there is no harm in that. I was just discussing something with someone. Whatever that you are doing right now, probably in next couple of years, 2-3 years down the line, you might be doing something different because with experience you will be given more responsibility. So there is always something new out there to learn. So if you have done practitioner, go for associate. If you have one associate, go for another one. If you have all associate, go for pro. Huge amount of learning, and cloud is kind of booming. So rest assured, whatever time, energy, effort, money that you are spending, it will be worthwhile after some time. So yes, please do that. Years of experience, yeah, and experience comes with a practice, right? So it not that if you're just fresh, if you have just spent 1 year or 2 year, you can still build up a pretty good solid portfolio down the line. So that's also good. I see a lot of people in the fresh bracket and a lot of in the very experienced bracket as well. So let's get started with the session itself. Today's agenda is all about serverless. So we'll be talking why, what, how, and everything else about serverless. AWS is the undoubtedly leader in the serverless space. Yes, there are many other cloud providers. They have their own serverless services, but AWS is pretty much covered everything, whole lot of services. So we'll go through some of those as well. Then we'll come to our use case. Although by line you will see that it's pretty simple use case, just deploying your portfolio service. But I'll explain to that why it is a bit challenging and how you can learn a lot of things about cloud and AWS services by just following this exercise. We'll go into the demo. Then we'll also look at how Whizlabs is using serverless. Pretty exciting numbers there as well. And then finally, we'll look at the summary of everything that we have covered. So this is session level 100 to 100. If you're already following the AWS webinars, documentation, other things, there's always this numbering 100, 200, 200, 300, 400. It actually shows the experience and the kind of content that you will see. So this one is kind of introductory to moderate level. We'll go through a lot of services, but not in a very depth. But it will give you enough insight so that you can, after the session, you can go in and practice on your own. So why serverless? How we have come here? We are talking about 2000 to 2021. If you see around, most of the applications nowadays is either using containers running on some kind of managed services like ECS, or it is using container with Kubernetes, or it is serverless. So there is a huge amount of documentation, content, and other things flowing in. Flooding, as such, I'll use that word, and it's a good time. It's a great time to learn about this modern compute. It's a whole new category itself, modern compute. So previously we had physical computers. Most of the enterprises or the private companies, big companies, they used to have their own data centers where they keep all their applications and everything, which requires upfront investment, right? You need to purchase those, you need to set up networking, security, and stuff like that. Then came the idea of virtualization, so that within the same infrastructure, you can actually virtualize and you can kind of create partition and allocate kind of as much amount of resources required to the team, to the application, to the department, and stuff like that. So that is kind of optimizing the usage of your already invested infrastructure. Then came the concept of that, okay, we don't want to manage this on our side. Something happens, we are out of the infrastructure, we are out of the connection. We require the dedicated people to manage it and stuff like that. So the co-location became very popular. Whatever infrastructure you have, you just offload it to the someone who is familiar with that. They manage everything. And if you started iPhone programming in very early days, where people didn't have enough Mac, or they don't want to spend a lot of money in buying the Mac machine because iPhone development requires Mac machine, then the colo was a very popular concept like that. You can actually rent a Mac Mini in the Mac cloud, or you can actually just kind of pay the monthly fees, and they will host a Mac Mini for you, and you can actually remotely connect to that from your wherever you are, and then do your development. It's a pretty interesting concept. A lot of enterprises are also loading their whole infrastructure with that. Then came the cloud provider. So cloud started kind of gearing up late 2007, 2008. To remind you, AWS started fully functional cloud back in 2006 with our introduction of EC2, that is a virtual instance, virtual machine in the cloud, and S3, that is a cloud storage. So it's by just credit card, you can actually start creating as many virtual machines as you want and as many storage in the cloud as you want. So that's what was phenomenal concept back in 2006. Then the momentum on the infrastructure slowed down, and then people started focusing on designing and developing better applications faster, right? So then the DevOps practice, 12-factor application, modern, the application architecture came in, where people have everything. You have everything that you need, and now you want to focus on how you can better package and deliver your application. So the containers and the serverless is a new paradigm. Both Kubernetes and serverless is similar in terms of age. Kubernetes started released in 2015, the production version, and the Lambda also released in late 2014, early 2015 in the production. The overall idea around the serverless is that you do not want to focus a lot on the server. That's why the name serverless is more of just a term. There are always servers. But as a developer, as a designer, as a kind of a solution architect, we are not spending a lot of time on kind of understanding what kind of server networking capacity that we need. We are only focusing on business use case. That's why the overall serverless, if you now see in the documentation or in any other webinars, it says that the serverless allows you to pay attention to the business use case, and not that much of an attention is required on the infrastructure and management of that. Cloud provider manages the whole infrastructure, the service availability, the scalability, and the security part of a service itself. And the biggest of is, now we have abundance of resources in the cloud. But as many of you might have already experienced, cloud may not be cheap, right? If you use it in a right way, yes, you can design the internet scale application. But if you do not use it, you do not configure it in the right way, you might be overpaying. Serverless comes with a concept that you pay for what you consume. So if your application is out there, nobody's using it, then most likely you are not paying anything. You will be paid for whatever resources that you have consumed. Now, in comparison with an EC2, if you have created a virtual machine EC2 into the AWS to host your simple website or your portfolio website, even though nobody is using it, you still need to pay for the compute that you have actually provisioned. You have to pay for the disk, you have to pay for the CPU, you have to pay for the RAM that you have allocated, and you are paying to just keep it up and running. The same thing, if you deploy it via the serverless, you will be paid, you will be charged for the requests that you are serving. So if for a month, there are 10,000 users who visited your site, you're just paying for that. For another month, if there are zero, or let's say just 100, we do not want our user base to kind of shrink from 10,000 to zero, right? But in comparison, if there is no real users in a specific amount of time, then you are not basically paying for it. So that's a whole concept of pay for what you consume. This is really popular for nowadays for enterprises, businesses, and even for the startups. Reason being, everyone wants to save where they can, right? So coming to the typical architecture of a modern application, right? So even in your day job, whether it's a side project or your day job, you will experience this thing. If you are a developer, whenever you start a new application, you have few things to kind of take a decision on. Where and how will you manage the user authentication and authorization? Where and how you will store the files. If your application is consuming a lot of or generating a lot of files, where and how you will store it. What will be the framework that you will use for the APIs and everything. Most of the applications, whether it's a mobile application or a front-end web applications, it's like a self-sustained application. So single page SD applications. So if it's a web application, you are using the React, Angular, Vue.js that is just running in the browser itself, and you are using the APIs to actually connect with your backend application. If it's a mobile application, then also you are reaching to your backend via the API. So that's how your front end is separated from the back end. Then the database. Nowadays, it's not just one choice that we had few years back, just MySQL or Postgres as a relational database. You have many kind of variation in the database. You have the relational database, you have the no relational database, you have the graph database, you have the time series database, you have the ledger database, many variations in that as well. Most of the SaaS applications use some kind of a payment gateway as well. So that is something, if you are not very big, you would rather offload that to a dedicated service. Like in India, Razorpay is very popular. In US, Europe, Stripe is very popular. PayPal is very popular. So the idea is that if you see the overall selection wise, the application that you want to build, you have some components which you would, instead of developing and designing on your own, you would like to offload. And that's why I put some of the icons here. So Auth0 is a very popular identity as a service. So similar to like platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, you have identity as a service. So Auth0 manages all your identity related things. S3 manages all your file upload download related things. I'll come on to that later as well. Firebase, very popular offering from the Google. Similar to that, we have DynamoDB in AWS. So that's the NoSQL database in the cloud. You just use that. You do not need to provision or create anything. For credit card, again, you are offloading. So you are mixing the open source, you are mixing your own kind of compute that you have decided whether it's a serverless or container, and you are mixing the SaaS, the existing software as a service, and then you are creating your application. Very honestly, all the application in last few years that I have designed, they use the mixture of these things. My choice of compute, whether it's a serverless or container, then the dedicated services, SaaS, and the open source software and the tools. So before we jump into the idea of the serverless itself, I'll just put a few things around the container versus the serverless, because that's a popular question that I also get very frequently. There's a vast amount of difference between the two still. So these are some of the points. One is that the container is something that you need to kind of design in that way. You need to make sure that your application has the container definition. You need to package it, and then you need to store it, and you are using the package file. That's the deployment package. Cost structure is also slightly different. Your container is always running, unless that you are using some kind of an automation or tooling or some kind of a managed services like ECS with Fargate. You also have the container, which is kind of always running. Persistent part, if you are using some kind of a persistent or a database service in your containerized environment, it's always on, or a kind of a semi-transient, but not fully transient. State of the management, if you are following the 12 factor, I'll put a link to that as well. For 12 factor applications, kind of decide some of the standards approach that you should follow while designing your applications to kind of keep it suitable to the modern framework. Then whether it's a container or whether it's a serverless, you want to keep your code stateless. You are not dependent on the local disk, or you are not dependent on some of the values in your variables from the previous execution. You process every request as in it's a new request. Okay, and every request should have the same outcome. So whatever is if you are providing the same input, it should also always have the same output. Scalability, in case of container, this is something that you need to kind of configure, whether you are using the managed services or you are using your self-hosted container orchestration system. This is something that you need to pay attention and spend some time. Which in case of serverless, it is offloaded to the cloud provider itself. Load balancing is something also you need to pay attention and to configure. If you are coming from the Docker Kubernetes, then you need to design the service, you need to design the ingress, you need to also decide which kind of load balancer that you use. So some amount of effort you are still putting in on the infrastructure side, not just on the business side, but on the infrastructure side, which is in case of serverless, it is offloaded to the cloud provider itself. One thing, so AWS Pool is one of the largest kind of a cloud tech events every year. And last year, Andy Jassy, then CEO of AWS, said that half of the new applications that is built inside the Amazon, this is not AWS, this is half of the applications built inside Amazon.com or all the worldwide business that Amazon has, that is using Lambda. So we can tell, I also get this kind of question every now and then, that what exactly is the future of serverless, or whether it's kind of for serious developers or companies who are heavily invested into serverless, they know the power of the serverless. But for people who are starting their serverless journey, or the companies who are starting their journey, they always ask this, that if serverless is good now, but will it be good 2 years down the line, or we will always be able to rely on that. So this is kind of a proof to that even the Amazon is spending heavy, and that's why we see huge number of services around the serverless. And it's not just a Lambda. For many people, serverless is equivalent to Lambda, which is a function as a service, but it is not that. AWS has created a whole ecosystem around that, and that's why it is now called the AWS Serverless, which has a lot of services. It's an umbrella which has a lot of service for every single thing that we require for our modern application to build. So these are some of the services that I am going to go through, and out of this, we'll take some of these services to in our demo as well. So when it comes to the compute, so that is the place where you actually host and run your code. We have the Lambda and we have Lambda at edge. We have the Fargate, which is kind of serverless continuous service. For the storage, we have the S3 web cloud storage, and we have EFS, which is a network file system. Both are serverless and fully managed. Database side, we have DynamoDB, very popular. In the snapshot, there is a thing, the Snapchat, very popular case study that Snapchat migrated the Snapchat stories to DynamoDB in a very short amount of time in 2019, the end of 2019. And they were around the new year, they were processing 1 billion transactions in a very short amount of time, and they were not seeing any kind of outages or any kind of performance impact. So they moved that particular portion of their application to DynamoDB, and then it worked really well. On the relational database, we have Aurora. I have not put the Aurora serverless, but we have the Aurora and Aurora serverless as well. And if you want to connect to your relational database running inside the RDS from the DynamoDB, the connection is a big problem. So you can use the RDS proxy so that you can actually interact with your database without creating and disposing connection every single time. If you are a developer, that's a very standard thing, right? That the first thing you need to do is you need to create a connection pool, and then only your application will start interacting with the database. So here AWS has done is they have identified the right areas which can actually help the serverless developers to actually efficiently design. And that's why you will see this newer, very dedicated set of services around that. Proxy, we have API gateway, pretty extremely popular. It supports the HTTP, REST, and WebSocket as well. A lot of people are not familiar that API gateway also supports WebSocket. So you can actually write, you do not need to create your separate WebSocket server on EC2. You can actually use the API gateway with WebSocket and still use your Lambda to interact with your front end. On the integration side, we have the SQS SNS. It's kind of a decoupling the application, and then create. If you have want to kind of exchange the messages or event between different services. Event Bridge is pretty new. It's basically an extension to CloudWatch event, but this is very advanced service. You can use it to actually listen to all of your cloud events. So you can actually do some sort of automation around that. When your EC2 instance goes up or goes down, or you can write the cron job in that. It also has a third-party integration. So there are kind of a big list of third-party SaaS. And for an example, let's say MongoDB Atlas, which is a separate MongoDB cloud. If your application is using MongoDB Atlas and someone writes a new record into the MongoDB Atlas and you want to do some kind of processing into the AWS, you can create a bridge from the MongoDB Atlas to Event Bridge. That way, you do not need to do any kind of pooling, run any kind of separate service. That some of those things go away on its own, and Event Bridge takes care of everything. So pretty solid and pretty feature-rich service. AppSync is also getting really popular. Now it's a good time to actually learn about the GraphQL, and AppSync is a fully managed GraphQL service in the AWS. Authentication, we have the Cognito, which manages all the user sign up, sign in, login, third-party identity integration. For orchestration, step function is really popular. In all my experience, if you are designing a serious serverless application, step function is something that you will need one or the other time, because this allows you to kind of orchestrate, control the different Lambda functions and services together in a kind of controlled fashion. It's kind of workflow, serverless workflow in the cloud. Analytics, Kinesis, Athena for dedicated use case, and we have quite a few developer tools, something which every developer should know. One is a SAM, which is a serverless application model. It's a framework to develop and deploy serverless application for AWS. You can use a serverless framework. We'll be going through the serverless framework in our use case. Then we have CloudWatch, X-Ray for the logging and monitoring. We have code build, code deploy, code pipeline for CI/CD. And we have the Cloud9 ID. If you do not want to set up anything, just want to go into your AWS account and start writing the application and deploy it from there, you can use the Cloud9 ID. So these are some of the services in that category. I'll not go through again because I have already gone through that. Some addition you will see here is a boards. You have the Lex and the Alexa. Both are pretty good. If you Just for the side project, you should spend some time on this pretty amazing services on their own. IoT, a lot of people are not familiar that you can actually use IoT for a variety of use cases. And PPC, ELB, if you have done any certification, whether it's a practitioner or associate, you are already familiar with what is PPC, what is ELB, and those sort of things. Everything else I have covered. So, any questions so far? I see my question that was popping up. Yeah, okay. Do we have any questions that I can answer right now?
Yes. In the Q&A section, there is one question from Mike Lakshman, and there's one more question. You can just click on the Q&A and click on the open questions.
It's not opening for me.
I think you can minimize the slide, the Google Slides one.
Okay.
Yeah, and then click on the Q&A on the menu top.
Okay, I knew that I'll get a certification related question. I did solution architect associate and professional. What do you recommend? I'm not good at coding, very beginner, and not so keen to learn coding. You can go for specialty. There are plenty of specialty. You can go for the database. You can go for the security. Machine learning is something that everyone at least should understand. So if you are, and that is, I'm not talking about for the day job, just for the understanding where the AI and the ML part is going. So there's a ton of options around that. You can actually select. You don't need to learn dedicated coding for that, but you can still give it a try for a specialty certificate. Do you need to know network knowledge? Yes, at what level to get started? You will not require extensive amount of networking knowledge. In all my experience, this is something that you can learn along the way. You do not need upfront networking knowledge. It's not required. Container versus serverless, using Lambda, step function, how to decide which to use. Lambda is different, so step function is different. Step function is just an orchestrator. Lambda is a place where you write and deploy your code. So that is, if you're writing a serverless application, you will require Lambda for sure. Serverless is an option part. It all depends on the use case. Lambda won't help and will need container. There are a lot of use cases. I will suggest, I have some reference sites and everything, so I'll suggest you go through that later on. But nowadays, there are huge amount of use cases. I'll just give a very simple example. One person startup or a side project, Fortune 500, Fortune 10, all of them are using serverless in variety of capacity. Just the line itself that Amazon builds half of their application using Lambda, it gives that Amazon has a massive internet scale because Amazon runs across the world, right? Entire world. So whatever use case they have, that's pretty extraordinary. Whatever they are doing, that is massive scale, right? So if they can fit Lambda and serverless in their use case, normal people like us with our normal use cases, we can do it easily. And then the AWS has a white paper and case study section where you can just filter through the serverless and you will see some amazing case studies from big companies there. REST versus GraphQL, again, use case, if your front end doesn't need to just focus on to the fixed set of request response, then you can go for the GraphQL. If it is changing over the period of time, if you have multiple clients, some mobile, some web, your UI is also changing, then you should definitely check out the graph. It's much better than it. How cost difference in case of Lambda and Lambda at Edge? Lambda and Lambda at Edge both are separate things. Lambda at Edge has a very limited use case that is for the geographical based request processing, and plus it has limitations as well. So Lambda at Edge is having entirely different use case. You cannot use one or the other. So you should go to the documentation first. Any limitation of serverless architecture? It's a very broad question. Please go through the case studies and use case. What about Linux experience? It's not required as such because it says serverless. You will not be able to SSH into Lambda. You do not need to kind of learn anything related to Linux. But yes, having the basic understanding of Linux helps everywhere. So it's not just that whether you need to learn about the Linux for serverless, it's not required, but having an isolated experience of Linux or system administration just helps on its own. Case studies available. I'll put I have put reference links, so you can go through that. Any simple service in, and I'm not an MS Microsoft kind of familiar with the Microsoft stack, but they have plenty of services. If you see the latest numbers from the Wall Street calls, Microsoft is leading in the cloud. That's a full separate discussion. But yes, you should definitely go and check out their documentation in the related spaces. Again, a lot of questions related to the use cases. I'll put some of this because this is a good question. But we can take this, we can park this and kind of answer it later. This is a good question. Saikiran has a really good question. This is a lot of people has when they are designing the serious serverless application, they always pay attention to that little detail that now it is fine. What will happen tomorrow? What will happen next month? What will be the kind of a cost and other things 6 months down the line? Can you put container-based service or anything? Serverless Lambda now supports container images, so you can definitely use that to go through the documentation and see how it works. Okay, what we'll do is we'll park the question, keep this option open for now, and we'll take some of this question, remaining question towards the end. Is that fine? Otherwise, I think we are getting a lot of questions. Run out of the demo.
Yes, we can proceed with the webinar now and take up the question at the later section.
Okay, great questions from all of you. I'll answer some of these questions later, and you will get an answer of some of this from the reference and links. So typical structure of an application. Now this is the place where I'm just trying to explain that if you are not familiar with serverless, what will be your thinking process when you are designing and developing and kind of deploying an application? So physical machine or virtual machine. Most of the application that we start developing is on our computer itself, right? We use our personal development machine or a company machine. We start writing the code there. I'm more familiar with a Node.js, JavaScript. So if I'm doing something, I first create the Node.js application, Express application, if it is a web base, and then run it. If I'm using a database, I create a database locally, or I use kind of a cloud database like a MongoDB Atlas or something. Then I make a connection. If my application is processing, storing the file or delivering the file, I'll actually store all of these files in one of the folder on my local or a virtual machine. So this is a typical structure. You have a machine, you run your code there, you connect with a database, and you use the file system. So pretty kind of this is considered as a very standard monolithic application, one application having everything, and then it's pretty much dependent on the few of the dedicated services. So browser request comes in, and if everything is running, whether it's on your machine, virtual machine, or anywhere else, everything will be fine because all the resources are available. Whether it's a file system, whether it's a database, or your networking and connectivity, or your virtual machine or physical machine is ready to serve the request. So this will work just fine. When something fails, your request will start failing, right? It could be anything. If the file system is lost, in most of the cases, your application itself will fail. But let's say your file system is kind of an attached volume, and you are just storing some of the application specific files there, then that particular portion of the application will not work. If your database is down, then also your application will not work. Your application server itself is down, then also it will not work. So it's kind of a very standard flow that anything can go wrong, and that will have an immediate effect onto the performance or the kind of availability of your application. Too many requests, okay, then because you are using a physical or a virtual machine, both has one thing fixed: amount of resources. Whether it's an EC2 in the cloud or whether it's your physical machine, it can take up to certain load, right? Even the simple use cases, the Chrome that we use on our machine, right? If you are using the latest and the greatest Mac, you can run 150, 200, 250 Chrome tabs. You make 500 Chrome tabs, and suddenly you realize that your application, your machine is not performing. Same is the case with this. More requests flooding in, some of the resources will reach to a capacity. Either the database connections will be kind of at throttling, or your server itself is throttling, so that the request will start experiencing the delay, or your file disk that you have pre-provisioned, because it's a fixed capacity. You have allocated certain size that will be out of space. So while designing the application, which is dependent on many of the external factors, the services itself, we also need to also do the calculation that what will happen if my application is used taking in more load. Okay. Serverless by default says that you should basically actually think everything as a dedicated separate service, so that everything can scale and run on its own. Now, this is the use case wherein which, like I said earlier, if no request coming, then also you are keeping the whole infrastructure up and running. You still have a disk sitting idle. You have the database sitting idle for the waiting for the request. You have server sitting idle, waiting for the request. You also need to keep your physical or your EC2 instance, virtual machine. I'm using the reference EC2 because that's everyone familiar with. So you have to keep your physical and virtual machine always up and running. All of these things you have to always keep up and running. Okay, because if it is not running, that means some part or your overall application is not going to be functional. So this is kind of an additional job. That's why we have the systems administrators, we have the monitoring tools to make sure the infrastructure, all parts of our infrastructure is running. And besides the focus onto the individual feature of the application, we also need to pay attention to all the moving parts, the virtual machines, the CPU, the RAM, the disk, the database connections, and everything. Someone has to take care, whether it's a separate team or whether nowadays we have a lean and mean team. So kind of a DevOps practice, whoever writes the code, they own the whole service or the application. They have to factor all of these things into the consideration. Now let's go back to our use case and how we will basically use the different serverless services for that. Like I said, the title itself, it's a very simple hosting and deploying your portfolio website. It's a single page application where I'll be highlighting some of my personal information. And I want to host it so that people can actually use that and in contact, reach out to me. So I will require typical hosting requires some kind of hosting service. First thing comes into our mind is a WordPress, which is kind of fully deployed application. You require virtual machine or some kind of machine to host it. Then we want our host portfolio site to run pretty kind of fast. It should cache the content and should be easily available. So we are using some kind of CDN to do that. We do not want the site to be the name of the site to be extremely complicated, like the random alphanumeric string. So we want to actually use whatever domain name that we have, like my name.xyz.com or whatever it is that we want to use. So that DNS linking will come into that. Along with the DNS linking, HTTPS is a very standard. There are many other services. I'll not go into the detail of that, but you can host your site with HTTPS very easily. But doing that on your own from scratch, you need to spend some time, effort. In some cases, you need to also spend money as well, because acquiring the SSL certificate is not an easy thing. Okay, it's not cheap, or it's not. In some cases, it will not come free as well. Then the database part, your site. In my case, I'm hosting a portfolio site, which is actually which will allow anyone to send me a message, and I want to persist that message into database so that I can later check it if I'm not available for few hours or few days. And then the email notification, whatever contact that I have received, I want an intimation to myself as well that, okay, someone has tried to reach out to me, so that I don't need to go to the database every single time and refresh and check it there. I'll receive email notification immediately once someone drops a message to me as well. Which are the different services that we will use for this? So we'll be using S3 for our web hosting. Pretty popular. Any of you who have done the certification or already using AWS, you already know that the S3 is a go-to. S3 is basically a backbone for the entire AWS. Almost every single service has some kind of a connectivity with S3. Either it's for the main, it's for the backup, or it's for something. Even the Lambda stores the code package in the S3. It's hidden, but when it creates the Lambda container at runtime, it actually pulls the code package from S3 behind the scene and then creates a micro container based on that code. So even the Lambda uses S3 in the background. It's not visible, but it is using that. We'll be using CloudFront. CloudFront will actually help us in the CDN setup, and that will actually also give us the HTTPS. We'll be using Route 53 for linking my existing domain name with my portfolio site. We'll be using API gateway so that people can actually send a message, drop a message, and we'll be using DynamoDB so that I save that message. And I'm not using Pinpoint. I have changed that part. Forgot to actually change here, but I'm using the SNS to send out the email notification. There is not Pinpoint is basically an umbrella service. Inside, it actually does a lot of things, but it uses many of the existing services as well. This is the link, bit.ly Whizlabs serverless site. You can get it from the slides later on. You can just note it down right now. And I think someone will drop a link into the chat as well from the Whizlabs site. So you can refer to that as well later on. So this is how the architecture diagram looks like. The user comes, it will first hit the route 53 because that's what I have set up for the DNS. Then the DNS is routing to the CloudFront. CloudFront is internally using the certificate manager. Now, if you are using the serverless services if you're using the CloudFront, you can actually, and if you are using the Route 53 as well for the domain name, you can actually create the SSL certificate free of cost, and you will not be able to export it and kind of reuse it somewhere else. You have to kind of host everything inside the AWS. So that's what I have done here. It's pretty simple way to actually create the SSL certificate, but for that you need to use the Route 53 and in our case CloudFront as well. Then the S3 is used to host our portfolio site content, that is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Then we have API gateway, which creates a simple API so that the user can actually send a contact request from the web page. That will be received by the Lambda. Lambda will store it into the DynamoDB, and Lambda will also drop a message into SNS. Now, SNS supports multiple protocols, so I'm using here one of the protocols that is email. So whenever Lambda drops a message into SNS, SNS will send out an email to me based on whatever email address that I have provided. So it's pretty neat way so that I don't need to code any kind of specific email sending logic. I can just drop a message into SNS and SNS will actually take care of all the email sending and everything through that. Before we start my demo, we have Abhishek from the Whizlabs team. He wants to quickly go through the latest and the greatest feature from the Whizlabs side. So I will hand over the session for a few minutes to Abhishek, and then after that we'll resume with our demo. Abhishek, to you.
Thank you so much, Dhaval. That's my pleasure to present the Whizlabs lab with you all today. And I hope I'm clearly audible and my screen is visible. Due to some technical issues, I'm not able to present the camera. So we'll start with the introduction of labs at Whizlabs. We have different type of labs that are currently present. We have more than 150 plus labs. The very first category is introducing AWS service. Like let's say if you have just learned about what is elastic load balancing. So we have labs on what is classic load balancer, what is application load balancer, and what is network load balancer. Then comes the explaining feature of AWS services. So if I take one of the example of application load balancer, it can be route based path that you forward with your load balancers, or maybe query string based path that you follow. And then labs on most of the common use cases like S3 pre-signed URL. Then comes the integration of multiple AWS services that we do. Maybe we can have S3 sending notifications, email notifications using SNS, and there's a Lambda function to do some job. And then comes the learning path for AWS certifications that we have prepared according to the syllabus and the domains present for the certification. At the end of this webinar, there is a surprise for you all, and we do have a quiz which will be announced as a quiz winner. So as I proceed, as Dhaval spoke, the serverless topics that are present, we have labs on almost all of the topics. I'll just walk you through one small demo of lab. So to access the lab, you can go to play.whizlabs.com, where you will get the all the labs present at Whizlabs. You can click on AWS Labs to see the list of labs that are currently present. And to access one of the lab, you can go to your account and open the course that you have purchased. And there's a section called Labs. So to access the lab, let's say if I want to access the lab on Introduction to Amazon CloudFront, I can just click on the Start button. And since this lab is about introduction to Amazon CloudFront, this will be again as a beginner level lab, not much advanced. Lab has a lot of features that we are adding side by side. The very first comes is lab details of what you will be doing it. You will be understanding how to create a CloudFront distribution, how to have publicly accessible images that are stored in S3 bucket, and then comes the error pages and geolocation of feature of CloudFront. Then the duration and the AWS region where you will be accessing. Then a little short intro about what CloudFront is all about. And then comes the task detail, like what all tasks you need to perform. Then comes the architecture diagram. And here, if you see, we have launching the lab, like all the steps that you need to go through to perform this. So to access the lab, you can just click on Start Lab button. It will take 5 to 10 seconds. Okay, there is one more lab running in my account, so I'm redirecting to there. Meanwhile, you can check out all the labs that are present, or if you are preparing for any particular AWS certification, then we have something called quests, which follows along with your learning path. Maybe you are preparing for AWS Solution Architect Associate or the Developer Associate or any pro level or specialty level certification exams. We do have labs for all of the certification, and we are adding the labs for specialty level currently. Okay, so this lab was going on in my account. Just give me a minute to terminate this. And then I can come back to CloudFront again. So at a time, only one lab can be accessed. This is what I was trying to show. I started the lab in the backend so that I can show you this feature of labs. Okay. If you have any questions regarding the lab, you can post in the Q&A. I'll be answering it via the chat feature. Okay, so this one is ended. Now I'll switch over to the CloudFront lab that we were doing. And to access the lab, I will just click on the Start Lab button, and then the labs open. Since it is creating a temporary environment for you, the processing will take a bit longer sometimes, where we have used serverless to create a short-lived URL for you. Now lab is launched, and I can click on the Open Console button. If I have any other AWS account logged in, then I need to log out that account first and click on log out the previous account and then relaunch the lab. So once you open the lab, it will give you a fresh AWS account from Whizlabs. You don't have to worry about the costing feature or the cost for the labs or the steps that you are doing. Now you can create your bucket and perform all the steps. Now one of the feature that I would like to introduce here is the validation button. The validation says whatever you have done, whether you have done it a right way or not. Since I have not done anything, the validation should fail for me. And we are using AWS Lambda to check this. So this lab is failed because I didn't create any S3 bucket. I did not uploaded any objects to that bucket. and now I have created the CloudFront distribution. So there's a detailed stuff on why this is working or why this is not working, and one can easily understand the labs. I hope you have got the lab demo, and if you are already a Whizlabs user, you can access the labs, or if you are not a Whizlabs user, participate in the quiz to get a free course from us. Thank you so much, and over to you, Dhaval.
Great. Just 1 second. Let me share my screen again. Like Abhishek shared, it's a great feature. All of you should definitely check it out, and it helps you kind of stay away from what will happen in your account, who if you do something wrong and stuff like that. I'll come to an interesting thing around the labs part after this demo, that how Whizlab is using and doing some automation around that. So this is the link, the demo link. This is I have made it open on the GitHub. Any of you, it's very likely that some of you will not be able to understand this in this session in next few minutes. It's perfectly fine. There are too many things going on. The purpose of this demo is that you can spend some time, learn and understand the mechanics of different things, not just serverless, but AWS overall as well. And you understand that how these different services come together and stitch together and create an application. Like Abhishek said, I like one thing. It's a guided lab, right? So the purpose of a guided lab is that you can actually follow the steps and you understand the features, how, where you want to, or you need to do, and in what order you need to do. The best way to learn cloud, not just AWS or any cloud, is that you first understand, do it into the console. That is click-based infrastructure. That's what we call. You create your infrastructure by following the clicks, and then you set it up your application. But that's not how you will run in the production, or that's not how many of the companies in the production environment they run it. They use infrastructure as a code. The best way to learn any cloud service is that you write the code and create your infrastructure as a code, whether you use a cloud formation or whether you use any other Terraform or you use anything else. That will give you immense amount of knowledge around the different cloud services, the features, and how you can actually bring all of those things together. Because remember, in cloud, everything is distributed, everything is separate. So I'll not go into detailing of that. I can spend huge amount of time discussing those things. So we'll go to the demo. So here is the typical architecture, different services. We are going to connect all of this together, and we'll be creating my static site. So I have already created. I hope you can see my screen. I'll be just doing extra large there. And this is the code. This is same clone from the same repo and everything. As I said, the best way to learn, if you can convert your cloud infrastructure into code, that's you will learn huge number of things. Even though small services, nobody needs to learn all of the cloud services, but whatever services that you are paying attention to, focusing on, trying to learn, just see that how you can actually convert that to code. So in this case, we are using a few services. First of all, I'll do some clean. I am using my custom domain. I'll come to that. I'm using my custom domain, and if you want to integrate your custom domain, then you need to basically just 1 second, create a kind of a S3 bucket. So S3 buckets are globally unique. So if I have created it, someone will create, then I'll not be able to create. I hope I just wish that any of you don't create that. So just 1 second. I'm going to first remove S3. So that's my bucket. I'm going to clean it up so that I delete the infrastructure. Then I'll go into the console as well. Remove this is, I'll go into the cloud formation. So this is the stack. This is my cloud formation stack. It just created all the resources. So I'm using serverless framework. If any of you who are not familiar, you want to start your serverless journey, that's a pretty easy, pretty solid framework to begin with. You can learn SAM later on, but I personally like serverless framework. So it internally, when you deploy, it internally converts the YAML file into the serverless cloud formation stack, and then it deploys the cloud formation stack. So I have already deployed that. So I'm going to, it will just take a couple of minutes. I'm going to actually remove that. We'll start, you say delete in progress. So it will actually remove all the resources that it has created. And then I'll explain how I have set it up, everything. So while it is doing that, explain you some of the things. So if you want to try this later on, you can follow some of the documentation from this and do it on your own. First thing is, my domain name is part of a name chip. It's very normal, right? You use a GoDaddy, you use a name chip, or you use any other domain registry services. So my domain is part of the name chip, so that it's just a domain registry. And I need to use my domain name here, which with SSL certificate. So what I've done is I followed a very simple steps. I think some of these steps you will find in one of the existing Whizlabs labs. I'm not sure, but you may find it there as well. So here you can follow this link that will help you to actually just a name transfer. So whenever someone hits your domain name, it will route the request to AWS Route 53. So AWS Route 53 is basically kind of absorbing all the requests. You do not need to specifically set anything into the name chip. With a simple redirection, with a change in the name server and validation in the Route 53, you can actually redirect all the requests for that domain to Route 53. So that's the first part that you need to do. And this will take some time, so that's why I put it up front here. I'll also check that the progress of this. Yeah, it's deleting. The next is we need to set up some basic parameters. In my case, whatever is the domain name, I need to create a S3 bucket for that as well. The table name in which I will be storing the DynamoDB, the contact data, the topic name, which it will internally use to send out email. Forward email, this is the place where I will receive the email. So I'll use one of my personal another email address, so that whenever someone drops a message, I will receive it there. The ACM cert ARN, I have already created the certificate, SSL certificate. So because that process takes some time, so I have already created, and that is, I'm just providing I have verified the domain name as well from the name chip to Route 53 and here. So I have issued a certificate. I just need to use this ARN. So this will become my kind of an SSL certificate. This is something that you can actually follow offline. You do not need to write code. You can do that to manage multiple environment and have a full automation and CI/CD pipeline. In this case, just for the learning purpose, again, I'll repeat, this is a learning purpose. So some things you do in the Cloud Console, and other things you try to kind of code into the YAML and the serverless framework, cloud formation way, and then deploy. And the hosted zone. So this is again a Route 53 in which I have kind of validated, set up my domain. This is just a record. The actual domain name is still with name chip. But here I have just set it up. And as you can see, there is just a name server entry. There is no other entry. Rest of the things we'll try to set up with the infrastructure as a code itself. See, still in progress. It will take another minute or two to actually complete. This will create whole set of resources that is required for this entire thing. So it will create the Route 53 entries, CloudFront. It will create the API gateway, S3. It will create the Lambda, SMS topic, DynamoDB. Everything is part of this repo itself. So it will take a few minutes. Okay, so this is done. Now our site is fully cleaned. We don't have anything. And now I want to actually set up my portfolio site. So I'll first check. There is a sample config file. So this is the variables that you need to configure. I put an instruction. If you are doing it after cloning, you need to create config.dev. Because it's a learning part, I'm just using the dev stage for deployment. My bucket name is Newark. My table name is context. My contact receive topic is this. You can give any name, just an internal topic name. Forward email. I'm going to whoever drops the message here, I will receive that entry on my this email address. This is the ARN of my SSL certificate that I have created and put on site. And this is the host state zone, which I have already pre-validated after transferring it from the main chip. So we are all set, and let me deploy US it one. So I'm starting my deployment. At this time, if you see into the cloud formation, you won't see that kind of a stack itself, because the entire stack was removed and there is nothing available inside the AWS. So now everything that it will create a new stack, and it will set up all the required resources as per our architecture diagram, and we'll start setting it up. I'll also open, while it is doing that in parallel, what I'll do is I'll also open the Q&A on the site, not able to view the GitHub URL. I will drop into the chat, but it's very easy. You can just go to the bit.ly labs site. I hope I have not misspelled it. Oops. Yeah, to everyone. So this is the site that you can put through it. I hope it is accessible now. And we'll see the status. Yeah, it is in progress, and you will see a new stack. So it's in progress. And let's start going through, based on our architectural diagram, we'll start going through it. So the approach it will take is bottom up. It will not create these entries first. It will create the bottom entries first. So first you need an S3 bucket. Then you need the DynamoDB. Then it will create the API gateway and Lambda function. Then it will create the SMS topic, and it will create a subscription as well. Then after that is done, this S3 and API gateway, then it will create the cloud front. And then once the cloud front distribution is created, it will actually make an entry of that cloud distribution URL to route traffic. So let's go through it step by step. This is a serverless YAML file. You can design it however way you want. And I have just kept everything in one place, just so that to not make it overly complicated for the learning purpose. So from the top up, this is my service name, static app. You can give any name. I'm using the latest version of the serverless framework. I'm using the AWS provider. I'm using Node.js. This is a default stage to Dev. This is an IAM role that my Lambda is using. And the serverless actually gives the freedom and capability that you can kind of design and allocate the right resources and right security parameter. So in this case, I have only one Lambda, and the only job that it has to do is actually put an item inside the DynamoDB. So the only permission that I have given to that particular Lambda is that it can only write inside the DynamoDB, nothing other than that. So this way I can design. The second thing is the same Lambda is now actually sending out a message to SNS. So it is writing into the DynamoDB, and it has a publish permission to kind of drop a message into the SNS. So that's the limited permission that I've given. Again, this is for the learning and understanding. You can actually design and customize it to the very complicated way. I have a couple of environment variables. What is the name of my table and topic name? The environment variable that I've set here that will be available to my Lambda as well, because my Lambda should know that what exactly is the name of the table and where it needs to basically drop a message, right? So I will quickly go here. It's a very simple code, my Lambda code. All it does is it takes in the request, it passes the body. This is the proxy, Lambda proxy. So it will get the whole HTTP request, including the headers and the overall request body and stuff like that. I will pass just the body. I will use the email, name, message, save it into the environment variable which I have received. And also after that, I will drop the same message as a slightly custom message inside the SMS. Very simple, nothing fancy. But yes, my Lambda function is not dependent. There is nothing hard coded. It uses the environment variable, which I have defined here. And these variables are generated based on the resources created. So also look at the speed at which it is creating. So it is creating everything: API gateway, REST API, Lambda function it has created, the log group, the contact table in the DynamoDB. The best way to learn, again, I'll repeat the same thing, AWS Cloud or any other cloud, is by going through the infrastructure as a code and see how your code translates to the services. Because this is a repeatable architecture. I can do it 100 times and it will have the same output. S3 bucket, like I said, it will actually start bottom up. So it will create the less dependent resources first and the dependent resources later on. Okay. Again, going back to the code, these are the variables that I have put into my config file. It will pick up from there. Packaging, this is just a serverless framework related thing. I want to keep my Lambda function very light. So it's just a few KB. So that's why I'm just including what is necessary. And although I have quite a lot of things into the same folder, it will just copy the function, nothing other than that. Then comes the one by the first is a function. This translates to the API gateway. If you just whatever function that you put here based on the event, it will create the API gateway. And here you can see it that this function is pointing to this particular endpoint. So that's kind of one API gateway created. However, here it is actually giving the API gateway link, but we will not use the API gateway link. We have used combine everything into the CloudFront distribution, and then we are going to use it via the CloudFront. So this is my single function. The second thing is the resources. The resources is a section in which you can actually write your infrastructure as a code. So serverless framework gives the flexibility that not everything is created by the serverless framework, and you can actually orchestrate your infrastructure in this section. So this is a pretty interesting section. You will require more time to understand, so you can actually go through this repo offline, go through these things. I'll do slightly fast because the site has been deployed. So I'll go through this and then we'll quickly go into the AWS console and see everything. First is S3 bucket. Very simple. This will create S3 bucket. This will basically kind of enable the website hosting as well in one of the configuration properties, and it will assign the index.html as an index document. Course configuration I have enabled for the cross site script execution. This is a DynamoDB table, also very simple. It just billing mode is pay per request. So this is not using fixed provision. By default, it is using the 5 read and write capacity, but this one is on demand. So whatever that I consume, this will be charged based on that. Then comes the cloud front part of things. So I don't want anyone to use my S3 bucket directly. So I'm actually binding that my cloud front website, that static hosting, must only be used from the CloudFront. So this is the origin access identity. If any of you have done any certification, OAI is a very standard. It will be part of any of the associate level certification already. Then I'm setting up the bucket policy, that how this bucket can be used. I'm only giving the get object. That means I can only read from the S3 bucket. I just want the static site to be available in the browser, not any update to that bucket from outside. Then I'm creating the CloudFront distro. Now, this is a slightly complicated part because what I'm doing is I'm actually giving the multiple origin. One is my S3 bucket, which is going to kind of respond all the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript at the root. And another one is there is a API gateway as well. So I want to use a single domain name with 2 patterns. One is at the root level, it should actually return all my HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And at the slash kind of a pattern, slash path, which whatever that I have set here, on that, it should actually contact my API gateway. So this is just reflecting based on this. So every request will come here, CloudFront. If it is a slash, then it will go to S3. If it is a slash APIs, in current case, it is slash dev because I'm using a dev stage, then it will go to API gateway. Okay, so that's the two domain that I'm using. I'm combining that. I am using my custom domain, so I need to configure that as well. Caching, default caching behavior for the S3 and API gateway. And here I'm the last part. By default, if you do not provide the custom name, the CloudFront will attach the default CloudFront certificate. So that is CloudFront URL is already SSL enabled. But in my case, I have one certificate already available. Okay, so I am giving a reference to that. That's my ACM certificate AI. So it will actually use that. This is simple topic, and I'm creating a subscription as well. So as this has been already created, I will be able to show you that I have received an email. This is the email that I have received from AWS that your email address has been given as a subscription. You will need to confirm this subscription. So I have done nothing. There is no code or nothing written. Just because I have created an SNS topic and I have subscribed my email. So this is my personal email. And I use that in my configuration. So SNS sent me kind of a notification that you need to confirm to this subscription so that whenever someone drops a message into SNS, you will start receiving the message. So I will confirm my subscription. This is all automated process. I just have to configure my subscription. That is done. And this is the part. This is very important part because this part is linking the CloudFront distribution to Route 53. So as I saw you earlier, that the Route 53 was empty. It is still not showing anything because I have not refreshed it. It is showing just 2. If I refresh, it will show me an additional entry. That is the CloudFront. So it has automatically binded the CloudFront distro with that. So now we'll go one by one. So this is newart.io is now linking to this CloudFront as a redirection. Next, let me go through the CloudFront and we'll see a distro there. Yes, it is. There is a distro and I can see 2 origin. One is my S3 and one is my API. S3 origin, custom origin. Okay, so it covers everything that I have written in the YAML code. It actually goes there and starts setting it up. It also uses the custom SSL. So this is the custom SSL that it is using, this newart.io. And the behavior wise, the different, like I said, /dev will route to the API gateway, and star, which is at root, it will actually load my HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We'll also look at the SNS topic and my Lambda function. We will just finish in few minutes. I know that we have exceeded our time. So this is our simple topic that it has created, and this is a simple subscription, which is endpoint is my email address, which I have configured. Okay, and that is that. And my Lambda function, I have a lot of Lambda functions. If you see the code, it's pretty light. I have just included few things, so it will just show that this is my simple function as it is deployed. Only 4 KB, pretty lightweight, very easy to float and stuff like that. Like I said, there are a couple of variables that I am sending, so you will see that in the environment variable. This it has taken from the serverless YAML script, and the permission also according to what I have given. One for the DynamoDB and one for the SNS. Okay. Now let's go to our site, that is newart.io. It will not show anything. The reason is because I have just created the infrastructure. I have not actually moved any of my HTML, CSS, JavaScript there. So my HTML, CSS, JavaScript is part of the app folder. So what I have to do is I have that is into the repo as well. S3 sync remove.io. So what it will do is it will actually move all the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that is part of this folder, which is the front end assets. It will move that to my empty S3 bucket sitting idle to actually start serving the request. So this will come access denied. If I refresh now, you will see me. Okay. So because it was empty, CloudFront had nothing to cache at the first time. Now the CloudFront received the request on New York. This is a fully SSL. Okay. Has a valid certificate issued from Amazon, and I have not spent a single rupee or a single penny to actually acquire this SSL certificate. This is all done via the certificate manager, Cloud 53 in Namecheap. So this is my simple site. I'm a cloud solution architect. I love coffee. And yes, I am a father as well. So this is my simple site serving now. If you open this, you will be also able to see it. Portfolio, I haven't put anything. I'll put something later on. Some detail about me, and that's the place where things are slightly interesting. This is the place where I'm going to actually send a request to API gateway. Okay, so let me type something. You all can open this, okay, and drop me some nice message if you want. Error. Sometimes because of the race condition and other things, if I try to deploy everything, it will actually throw an error. So in that case, I mean, this is I experiencing only for past few days, not longer. So what I usually do is, that's why you see an additional space. I actually deploy just my function again. Okay, so that way it actually captures the right permission set. If I actually go into the Lambda and try to run it, you can actually test the Lambda function from here as well. It will throw a kind of a strange error. This every time it actually returns some different error. So I'm going to wait so that it will again redeploy and it will fix the permission on its own. And then we'll try. So meanwhile, let me know in the chat message that all of you can see the site is loading for all of you or not. That is newarc.io. That's one of the many domains that I own. I just use it for reference purpose. Yeah. Wait for the contact message. I know that it's but yes, the good part is things fail. Okay, everything fails all the time. That's a very popular statement from Dr. Werner Vogels, CTO of Amazon. In my case also, things are failing. Okay, the API gateway is not responding because the Lambda is throwing a strange error that it cannot assume the role. Now, I'm not changing anything. I'm just going to redeploy my function without doing any change. And next time, hopefully it should work. Okay, so we are good. It has deployed everything. If I taste, okay, this time the error changed. I haven't done anything, but error changed. Now, I'm not even going to reload my site. I'm just going to send myself some message. Hi there, and it will work. Okay. The reason being because infrastructure as a code, you need to also keep in mind that your resources are created with the right dependency. There are a few resources which has to be available first, and then the other resources which are dependent on them should create later. There is something somewhere which I could not fix, but this is a good use case. This actually tells that things may still fail, and you need to put some more thing into your infrastructure as a code so that it works consistently all the time. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll show you all something. And I have started receiving a lot of messages. That's quite good of you. You will see that I'm not going to open, but whoever has sent me, they will be able to identify that, yes, they have actually sent me. And this is my Gmail where I started receiving the messages. Pretty simple, right? I haven't written any in that repo. I haven't even written a single line of code to actually send out email. All of this is possible because I am offloading my task to a dedicated service. I'm using the right service for the right job, using all of the things as a serverless, so that if there is no use, it won't charge me any much. But yeah, I'll come up to some of the questions which are asking that related to the cost itself. But here are the messages that I have received so far. It's quite good. Maybe I'll receive more. Yes, I have started receiving more. So that's good. Okay, I'll just open the one from I sent to myself, and you will see contact received email from SES, because I'm using SES. This can also be customized, but right now I'm just using it as it is. It says who sent me, what was the email that the person put, and what was the message. Simple, right? This is something that we all want, right? We want that our simple static site, which we create for our side project or something, which is up and running almost immediately. We are not paying a lot of attention to the infrastructure management, setting up the servers, thinking about the disk size, how will I kind of set up the SSL, how will I redirect to that, where exactly it will store. I'll show one more thing. It's DynamoDB, that it will also show that it has logged all the messages correctly. All the messages, I'll not go into that, but yes, all the messages are also saved. It's in a basic format, but it is saved. So that's good part. This is the link. I have put the link into the presentation as well. You can, after this session, whenever you find a time you want to experiment, you can actually clone this, give it a try, let me know how it works. I'm always open for the suggestions and everything. So that was the demo. Now about the some of the interesting stuff, please drop a message in the chat that whether you like the demo or not. So about the serverless at Whizlabs. So Whizlabs is using a lot of serverless, because it's, some of you were asking, right? What kind of use cases that the Lambda serverless can do, right? So Whizlabs is using it in a very interesting way. Abhishek just showed the Whizlabs labs, right? Anyone can go in, they can create an environment, they can play around with that. Now that's a very heavy part, right? Whizlabs is giving you a section of AWS account so that you can play around, you can go inside and do anything. But there is a lot of things that Whizlabs needs to take care around that, creating the AWS account, cleaning up the AWS account, making sure that account is kind of in a proper state, and keeping up with the overall cost, infrastructure, setting up, and all those things. Whizlabs runs at this moment 250 plus lambdas, 10K plus seconds in a single day. That's a quite kind of massive use case, right? You can use, they are using it in a variety of ways, right? Whizlabs is if you, on a front end, Whizlabs provides a training content for certifications. You consume the training contents, videos, you use their labs, okay? But on the back, they use the serverless services just to keep all of these things in a neat and tidy way, so that when you make a click, you have your infrastructure up and running in few seconds to few minutes. When you finish it up, it actually cleans it up, so that the Whizlabs doesn't need to pay thousands of dollars to AWS, right? They are also making sure that they optimize all of their uses. If they are offering you, they also make sure that they optimize the resources in the right way, so that they don't need to kind of pay up a large hefty bill. So that's the use case on that. Serverless space is still evolving. There are many things to learn. There are many things to kind of fine tune. And the one thing which I have learned over the years is that you need to keep on experimenting. Like Whizlabs, they used it in a different way. I used it in a different way. You may probably use it in a very different way. You need to sit down, you need to think through it. You need to see that, yes, can I use this to this or not? Now, to do that mapping, okay, I'll answer some of the question this way as well. If I'm doing that map, you need to ask the question, do I have the leverage that I can select the language? Can I run in this much amount of time? Can I access certain of the resources that I want. Can I integrate that service, Lambda function, or an API gateway easily with my existing application? If you can answer some of those basic questions, I think you will get your answer in your own way that yes, whether the serverless is the right fit or not, because there is no force fitting here. You can use nowadays, you can use a Docker container with serverless as well, and many people use it in a very interesting way as well. But yeah, you still need to, because every use case is a different use case. You need to sit and you need to put a question, and one by one, you will be able to answer all of those things on your own. You'll need to dig up in the documentation because it's quite new. There is a huge amount of documentation available, but yes, basic understanding of the serverless Lambda, how Lambda works, how the event-driven system works, and the 12-factor. I actually put a link as well. 12-factor application. You follow the DevOps practices, you follow the 12-factor applications, you follow the microservices, and I think you will get your answers reasonably well. Some of the resources from the Whizlabs practice test to the AWS digital learning serverless framework has their own documentation and some tutorials. Cloud practitioner, I put a Udemy, but Whizlabs has very good kind of a video series and practice tests around that. Serverless case studies, some of you asked that what are the use cases that we can do? This case study will give you kind of big companies, how they are using the Lambda API gateway, many of the other services in a nice, innovative ways. Container versus serverless, always a question, right? So you can go through this very good. They have actually defined few topics in a very nice way, and then actually put the comparison. 12-factor application. If you are a developer, you should practice the DevOps. You should practice that your applications are adhered to the modern standard, because that way you will be able to design better application, better software faster. Where to go from here? This session may not give you a lot of insight. There are plenty of other resources. You can always go and check out those. And yes, again, time for some Q&A. I will move this here. If I have time, unfortunately, I have taken some extra time. For the static application, the S3 consumption, I have the repo has a link, and that has costing as well. That's why I didn't put it specifically, but this is the cost part. It will be pretty nominal, like this. Route $53.5 a month. S3 will be 0.023 GB per month for storage. RO is very small, and CloudFront is again 0.085 GB for a bandwidth. If your application is pretty lightweight and not loading a lot of things, and this will also be very simple. 12-factor is basically a practice of how you kind of design your software. So the code base, your code should always be in the repo, some kind of a shared repo. So dependencies are explicitly defined, configurations, build, release, run, that's your CI/CD pipeline, statelets, processes, the concurrency model, the dev and prod parity. We all need that, right? We don't want our production way of development or staging, logging. So this is a best practices to do that. I'll just put a link here. Or I have that in the slide itself. I'll share the slide I think Whizlabs will share the slide later on, but I'll also share the slide. Once you deploy the code in the architecture, if needed, yes. If you are changing any of the AWS specific resources, you just need to do the AWS deploy that I have already mentioned here. If you just want to publish the your static site, static content, then you can just resync. This will only kind of upload the changed files, nothing other than that. And because I have kept some part off, that is for the learning purpose. If you are just changing the static content, CloudFront have already cached it. It's very likely, so you need to invalidate the cache. This is a nice way to actually learn how the caching, CDN, and the CloudFront works. So that's why. Yeah. Dynamo API gateway is just sending inside the DynamoDB and dropping a message to SNS. So just for the two tasks that I want to cover in a one API, that's why I created a Lambda. Otherwise, I could have done it directly from the API gateway as well. API gateway can directly write to DynamoDB as well. How to identify the things that key and version define YAML file? There is any template for this? This you can actually get from the serverless framework documentation as well. This is used to generate SQL, so it needs to be posted. If you are generating an SSL certificate, it has to be pre-validated into the Route 53, and I have put a link to do that. So yes, you will have to first kind of verify your domain with Route 53, and then only you can actually create the SSL certificate. For the session-based activity, I think you can use. Sorry, I'm answering from the bottom up. For the session, you can use the DynamoDB. It's a very popular service. You can use the Elasticcache Redis. Many applications use that. If you want to go pure serverless, then you can keep all the session data for a particular user. If you are using the Cognito or any other identity related thing, then you will have the session token as well, just to identify the user. And then you can actually keep all the session data related to that user into DynamoDB. It's a pretty standard practice to actually do that. Amplify versus SAM. Amplify is for the front end application. SAM is more related to kind of a backend, creating all the serverless application for the backend. Serverless framework, it's pretty easy, pretty solid. I usually prefer serverless framework. It's a nice way. There are places where you want to go with SAM as well. But if you are creating the APIs, if your use case doesn't ask for any kind of a detailed customization, then you will be pretty much fine with the serverless framework. If you go to their site, they are also pretty popular, and they have, I mean, huge big amount of customers. They use serverless framework. But yes, if you want to spend a lot of time, because SAM is slightly different, you need to understand the SAM template building and all those things. Then I think SAM is also good if you are more accustomed to YAML and those things. And cloud, some bit of cloud formation will also be required. In entire or big database implementation or similar complex platform, how can we implement serverless architecture? Just the same thing. You have a large amount of data coming in. You need to still divide that large piece of processing into smaller, and then ask, can I process this via the Lambda, or do I need a container running in the Fargate or somewhere else? Or whether you need the AWS Glue, or whether you need the AWS EMR to come in. So it all depends on the overall use case and how finally you can break it down and then focus on one service or one kind of a part at a time. So that way, there are in the case study link, there are some case studies which are related to the big data processing as well. So you can get a lot of detail from there as well. So coming back to this question, what will be deciding factor to go for serverless based application on Lambda function or container based on hosting EC2 instance? That particular link will answer. Eventually, if the consumption of serverless Lambda function grows huge, how easy it is to migrate the entire application to serverless? It will not be easy, because you are actually tailoring your entire application in the kind of a serverless way. So shifting the Lambda function to EC2 or a container based service may be some effort. But think, if you are so large, if your processing is so large, shifting that to a container base has definitely advantage and disadvantages. But by the time you will have enough understanding of your entire application architecture, and you will realize that, okay, what is the single most reason why I am shifting to EC2 or container based. So I think instead of doing a lift and shift from the Lambda to container, you might be able to better decide at that time that what exactly is a part that you want to offload. So I think that's it from the Q&A part. Your screen is stuck. My screen is just stuck because I am into Q&A. Let me know. So I think with this, I am end at the session. Again, thanks for the opportunity, Whizlab. Like I said, I have used Whizlab. I have a very long relationship with the Whizlab. I have used it for most of my AWS certification. I don't have any certification or renewal coming up very soon, but yes, if I'm sitting for any certification again in the future, I would definitely use their practice test. I have always used that in the past, so I'll continue that.
Thank you, Dhaval. That was an amazing webinar. I hope everyone have enjoyed. We have seen in the comment section like people were saying it's amazing, it's amazing. So thank you, Dhaval. So I think now this is the most awaited time. So before we go into further, we will go for a small poll and see how people have found the webinar. So I'm launching the poll.
Give me
Everyone,
your honest feedback, everyone, because yes, every session is slightly different. Based on the feedback, it will help me and it will help Whizlab as well to design better quality webinar.
Wow, many people have really loved it. Many have learned a lot. Let's see. Whatever comments that you especially have for Dhaval, you can actually add it in the comment sections. We will be reading it out.
Feel free to use the last two option as well. That is not satisfied and didn't like it at all. That is perfectly fine. Don't worry about that.
I think everybody enjoyed it. Why would they use it? Yes. So I'm ending the. Oh no, we are still getting votes.
Play around with the repo as well. I will share the slide with Whizlab, and Whizlab will actually, I think later when they send out the new emails, they can share the slides. But I can actually share it right now as well. In the chat, but yes, Whizlab will again send afterwards.
So we have got around 41% of people have said they learned a lot. So Dhaval, that says a lot about the webinar. Then 33% they have already loved it. Then 24 is satisfied, and a few people, 2 people, one person has already knew all these things, I guess. So that is it. So we are really happy, and thank you so much for being here. This is really amazing. So guys, what do you think? Sneha, Basant?
Yeah, I think everyone enjoyed it a lot. I am seeing a lot of positive comments on the chat box, and in fact, some people are using the Q&A section to tell us how this webinar helped them. So great work, Dhaval. Really glad that you joined us for this webinar, and I'm sure the learners had a great experience.
So I think, yeah. So Dhaval, I think we have already covered all the Q&A sessions, right? Anything else that is pending that you want to talk about?
No, I'm good.
Amazing. So I think everyone are waiting for this session now. So this is the most awaited quiz session, where so everybody knows when we Whizlabs have a webinar, at the end we will be having a quiz. So before we go into the quiz, let me say we have surprise gift for everyone. So there is offers for everyone. For individual courses, you will get a 60% off when you use this AWS 60 code. And for annual subscriptions, you will be getting a 30% off when you get this AWS 30. And the codes are valid till 13th May. Don't worry, we will be sending an email with this code to all of you. And the most surprising is for the quiz winners. So after this, Abhishek will be conducting a quiz. We have 5 questions and we are waiting for 5 winners. And whoever is winning this quiz, that person will be getting a free online course or a practice test of your choice. You can decide the course and we will be giving it for free. So that is the surprising gift waiting for all of you. and whoever is winning, we will be changing them to a panelist, and we are going for a digital selfie at the end. So I'm hoping that Dhaval will stay till the end just for a selfie and with the winners. And after the selfie with the winners are done, if anyone is interested to be a part of the selfie, just raise your hand and we will be changing you as a panelist, and we will take the selfies. So let's see how it goes. And Abhishek, over to you, man.
Thank you so much, Vidya. I hope my screen is visible and you are able to see the quiz slides. So make sure to put your answers only in the chat, not in the Q&A. Okay, and here you go with the first question. Perfect. I'll give 10 more seconds for this question. Make sure to answer it correctly. And it's time for the second question. Ten more seconds for this question. I see a lot of people participating. That's very good to know. And there we go with the third question. Ten more seconds for the third one. Make sure to participate and put your responses in the chat. If you are posting it in the Q&A, your responses will not be recorded. And there we go with the fourth question. That's good to know. I can see more than 30 people are interacting with us. And it's time for the last and the fifth question of the day. Ten more seconds for this one. Since the options are bigger one, you need a little more time from the previous questions to read the question and options. Perfect. Your responses are recorded with us in the chat. And I hand over now to Vidya. Over to you, Vidya.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you everyone for participating. Now, Sneha, are we ready with the winner's name?
So we are randomly choosing the winners here. So please don't hate me for not taking your name in this. So I've tried to be as fair as I can with the choice of winners. So okay, I'm going to announce the names of 5 winners here. Are we all ready? All right.
Big yes.
Yeah. So the first winner is Mike Miguel. Second winner is Krishnadeep. Third winner is Anuya Joshi. Fourth winner is Sharpil Kumar. And fifth winner is Sunia Sethi. I'm sending these names in the chat box. And you all get a course or practice test of your choice for free. We'll be mailing you with all these details, and you can tell us which course or practice test that you are interested in. So congratulations to all the 5 winners. You did a great job. And for all those who could not, don't worry, we'll have coming webinars. We'll have more webinars this month and the coming months. So I'm sure you will be able to win in the next webinar.
That was amazing, Sneha. So now can we convert them as panelists and we can go for a digital selfie? Basant and Mallikarjun, if possible, turn on the camera. Abhishek, I'm not sure whether the technicality is still you are still facing. If not, just let's turn on the camera.
Yeah, I think it's Zoom problem from my side. Yes, Sneha, please post the quiz winners and we can promote them to panelists.
Yeah, I'm doing that. So here are the winners. Hello, Basant.
So
yeah, we are. Sonia is not here.
Sonia, I have.
Yeah, Mike, Krishnadeep, Sharpur, Sonia, and Anuya. Yeah. So we have all the 5 winners as the panelists. If anyone is interested in getting clicked in the digital selfie, please raise your hand and we'll convert you to panelists.
I think first we will take a digital selfie with all the winners, and then we will go with everyone. Yes.
Hello.
So, are we ready? Yeah.
Yes.
Krishna.
Please turn on your videos.
Hi, hi, Anuya.
Yeah.
Hi, Venkata.
They are not able to turn on their videos.
Wait, I'm checking the technicality.
Yeah. Vidya, you'll have to go to your Zoom settings and from there.
I'm asking everyone to run on the video now. When we usually ask, they can.
Hi guys, this is Sharpur.
Hello, Sharpur. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Everyone else, I think you all might have got a request to turn on the video.
Yes, Anuya, Krishnadeep. Yeah, Abhishek is able to switch on his video finally.
I fixed it finally.
Yay.
Your fans were waiting for you.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Krishnadeep is also here.
Take a picture.
Congratulations, Krishnadeep.
Thank you.
I think now we are waiting for Sonia. I'm not sure. Are you facing any technicalities?
Once again.
Mike is also here. Hi, Mike. Congratulations.
Hello. Thank you very much, everyone.
Mike, from which country you belong to?
From Mauritius.
Mauritius. Oh, wow. So I think we have got everyone. So Sneha, shall we post for the digital selfie? Everybody go for victory.
Okay, Basant and the rest can all. Okay. Who is clicking? I'll take a screenshot so you won't see my hand. Smile. Great.
Amazing. So anyone else in the participants would like to be a part of this? Just raise your hand and then we can take a whole digital selfie.
Yes. Harbaksh is there.
Okay.
Vidya, you can send Harbaksh also an invite.
I am sending the request to everyone.
Okay, so Sonia and Anuya, we would like to see you. Please try if you can switch on your videos.
Okay.
Amazing that we get to see everyone. Pretty cool.
Okay, Harbaksh is here.
Hi Harbaksh, thanks for joining. Hope you enjoyed the session.
Hi all. Yes, excellent session. Loved it.
Thank you.
All the credit goes to Dhaval.
Yes.
Something is so smooth.
Where is Dhaval? Are you an independent, developer, or are you working somewhere?
I run my own company, and we are also AWS consulting partner. I'm based in Surat, Gujarat.
Okay, awesome. Look forward to some great sessions from you in future as well. And thanks to the Whizlabs team to set this up.
That's
Thank
amazing.
you.
So, Sneha, are we ready?
Yes, yes. You all can get ready with your poses.
So this is like we had a successful webinar. From the beginning itself, we had 70 plus consistent attendees. That's an amazing thing. So congrats to Dhaval and everybody. Thank you for joining. So there you go.
Yes.
Whichever pose you want.
Yes. 3, 2, 1, go.